Today, we're going to crack a literary and historical code that's been hiding in plain sight, right inside the Bible. We are going to unravel a puzzle that doesn't just explain the fate of some ancient kings, but it actually explains the very structure of some of the Bible's most famous books.
So here's the mystery. Have you ever read the books of Kings, and then right after, read the books of Chronicles? If you have, you've probably noticed something kind of strange. They cover the exact same period of history, the rise and fall of Israel's monarchy, but they feel like two totally different stories. So why? Why tell it all over again?
Well, it turns out they were written for two completely different reasons. The Book of Kings is like looking in the rearview mirror, an investigation asking, okay, why did we fail so badly? Chronicles, on the other hand, is looking forward through the windshield, trying to inspire hope for the future. And to understand how we got two such different accounts of the same history, we have to go way back to the beginning.
So let's rewind the clock. Let's go back to the exact moment that changed everything. The day Israel decided they didn't want God as their direct king anymore. No, they wanted a man on a throne, just like all the other nations around them.
I mean, listen to how blunt this request is. Up until this point, God was their king. When they needed a leader for a crisis, he'd raise one up. They called them judges, people like Gideon or Samuel. But the people demanded a permanent human monarch. And you have to understand, this was a radical rejection of their entire political and theological system.
And yeah, this was not taken lightly. The prophet Samuel actually calls their request a great evil. Why? Because it showed they didn't really trust God to protect them anymore. They wanted the visible security of a king they could see and an army they could count. Now God agrees to their demand, but this new monarchy is going to come with some very specific, very strict terms and conditions.
Okay, and this right here, this brings us to the absolute key to the whole puzzle. It's all in the fine print of this new deal, hidden in a single, often misunderstood verse that lays out the new rules for what you could call covenant kingship.
Now take a look at how a popular modern translation, the NIV, handles this verse. It's this long if clause, but then the sentence just stops. To make it make any sense, the translators had to add a word that isn't even in the original Hebrew text, the word good. It feels incomplete, right? That's because it is.
But now, look at how an older translation, the King James Version, renders it. See that little word, then? That one word, it changes everything. It's not just one long dangling condition. This shows us the original Hebrew structure. It's a classic if-then proposition. If you fear the Lord, then you and your king will continue following the Lord.
So you might be thinking, wait a minute, if you fear God, then you will follow God. Isn't that just saying the same thing twice? Well, no, not at all. In this brand new political reality, the phrase following the Lord suddenly takes on a whole new meaning. It now means proving your ultimate loyalty to God now that you have another option. See, with a human king in the picture, there's a brand new potential for divided loyalties. The verse is a warning. Your obedience or disobedience is going to prove who you truly follow.
So who's the first person to get put to this brand new high-stakes loyalty test? Well, it's Israel's very first king, a man named Saul. And he is immediately put on trial, not in a courtroom, but by the circumstances of his reign.
And boy, does he fail the test. Not just once, but twice, and in spectacular fashion. First, he's panicking before a battle, so he directly disobeys the prophet Samuel's command to wait for him, and he offers a sacrifice himself, which was a huge no-no. Then, after another battle, he defies an explicit command from God to completely destroy the enemy, and instead he keeps their king alive and all the best livestock for himself. And the verdict? Well, it is swift and it is brutal. Samuel confronts him with these famous words. Saul's rejection wasn't because he was a bad military leader. No, it was because he failed the fundamental test of this new covenant kingship. When he was forced to choose between God's command and his own judgment, he chose himself. He failed to follow the Lord.
Okay, so now that we have this core concept, this pass/fail test of loyalty, we can finally solve the mystery we started with. Why in the world are there two different histories of this whole period?
So here's a super quick history lesson to set the stage. After the famous reigns of David and Solomon, Israel's history is basically a story of decline. The kingdom splits in two, the northern half gets conquered, its people scattered by Assyria. Then, about 135 years later, the southern half is conquered by Babylon, and its people are dragged off into exile. This whole disaster creates two very distinct historical audiences.
And boom, here's the solution. The Book of Kings was written for the people sitting in exile in Babylon. Its purpose is retrospective, to catalog the covenant failures of king after king to explain why this catastrophe happened to them. But Chronicles was written later for the community that had returned from exile. Its purpose is prospective. It's meant to provide a basis for hope by focusing on the idealized, faithful line of King David as the perfect model for their future.
So maybe the best way to think about it is like this. The Book of Kings looks back at the wreckage and asks, how did we get here? Why did we fail? It's basically an autopsy report. But the Book of Chronicles looks forward from the rubble and asks, all right, how can we rebuild? What is the foundation for our future? It's a blueprint. 2 histories, 2 audiences, and 2 totally different but vital purposes.
You know, this ancient political drama leaves us with a question that's just as real and relevant today as it was 3,000 years ago. When your loyalty to a leader and your faithfulness to a higher principle come into conflict, how do you choose? It's a challenge every generation and honestly, every single one of us has to face.